The New Orleans Saints are telling the whole league something right now, and almost nobody wants to say it out loud. This team is not drifting anymore. It is choosing a direction fast. Tyler Show is being treated like the quarterback this thing is going to ride with, and the front office just backed that up by bringing in Travis Etienne, David Edwards, Noah Fant, and Caden Ellis in the first wave of free agency. That is not random shopping. That is a team looking at its young quarterback, looking at its roster and saying, this is the path, this is the plan, and we are going now. What nobody is talking about enough is how clear the message really is. Help Tyler Show by making life easier on every snap. Give him a stronger inside line with David Edwards. Give the offense more speed and juice with Travis Etienne. Give him another real option in the middle with Noah Fant. Then on defense, bring back Caden Ellis while big names like Demario Davis and Alontae Taylor move on, with Cam Jordan still sitting in that uneasy space where nothing feels guaranteed. That is why this feels bigger than a normal offseason. The Saints are not just adding names, they are changing the shape of the whole team. And that is the twist. This whole thing might be less about one splash move and more about one belief. New Orleans thinks this roster can turn faster than people expect if Tyler Show gets real support and the team stops asking him to survive on chaos. But here is where the story gets serious. If this plan is real, then the first place you have to look is not the highlight players, not the draft rumors, not even pick number 8. So it is the part of the field where games get decided before the crowd even understands what just happened. The trenches. And that is where the Saints may have made the move that changes everything. The New Orleans Saints are not acting like a team that wants to stay stuck in the middle. That is the part people keep missing. This front office looked at Tyler Show, looked at how he finished last season, and decided this was the moment to push. Not later, not slowly, right now. That is why this offseason feels different. It is not about making noise for 1 week. It is about the Saints finally picking a direction and moving with conviction around the quarterback they believe can lead the next phase of this team. What makes it feel even bigger is how clean the message has been. Travis Etienne gives the offense more life. Noah Fant gives it another layer. Caden Ellis brings back speed and familiarity on defense. Those are not random names pulled from different shelves. They all fit the same idea: make the team younger, faster, and easier to build around over the next few years. When a team loses veterans like Demario Davis and still keeps attacking needs this hard, it tells you they are trying to reset the clock, not protect the past. But here is where the whole thing gets serious. Believing in Tyler Show is one thing, proving it is another. Anybody can say a quarterback matters. The real test is whether you actually change the team around him in the places that decide games on Sunday. And when you look at what New Orleans did next, the truth gets hard to ignore. The Saints went straight to the heart of the offense. And that is where this story really starts to open up. The New Orleans Saints did not start this rebuild with a flashy headline. They started it where games get ugly and real. Inside. That is what makes the move for David Edwards hit so hard. He is not just another body on the line. He is a proven guard with over 100 regular season games and 76 starts. A player who helped Buffalo field one of the league's best pass-protecting lines, and who already owns a Super Bowl ring from his Rams years. This is the kind of move teams make when they are done pretending the middle of the line is good enough. And the smart part is, New Orleans did not stop with one answer. They also brought back Dylan Ray-Duns, who played in 15 games and started 10 for the Saints last season. Now that matters because this is not just about finding one starter, it is about stopping the yearly shuffle that wrecks rhythm up front. David Edwards gives the line a stronger anchor, and Dylan Ray-Duns gives it real experience behind him. For a team trying to settle its offense, that kind of inside stability can change everything from protection calls to short yardage football. But here is the part that should make Saints fans pay attention. When a team upgrades guard this early, it is not doing it for style points. It is doing it because it wants to run with more force, protect the quarterback faster, and stop losing the pocket from the inside out. That is why this story does not end with David Edwards or Dylan Ray-Duns. It opens the door for the player who may feel this change the most. The one who can turn better blocking into a completely different offense. The New Orleans Saints did not bring in Travis Etienne just to add another runner. They brought him in because he changes the speed of the whole offense. Defenses have to play him honestly because he can hit a gap, leak out of the backfield, or turn a short touch into a huge play before anyone settles in. That is what makes this move feel dangerous. The Saints are not just adding carries, they are adding stress. And when a team already believes in Tyler Show, giving him a back like this can change how every defense lines up before the snap. The other part people keep skipping past is what this does to the rest of the backfield. Alvin Kamara was still the Saints rushing leader last season with 471 rushing yards, but that number also showed how much the run game had slowed down. Kendra Miller and Audric Estime were there, but the room never felt settled. Now, it does not all have to fall on one player anymore. Travis Etienne brings a different kind of burst, and that gives New Orleans options instead of pressure. It gives the offense a way to attack rather than just survive. And here is the twist. This move gets even more serious when you connect it to Noah Fant. Now, the Saints can threaten a defense with a back who can fly and a tight end who can stretch space in the same offense. That is how play calling starts to open up. That is how short throws turn into easier yards. That is how an offense starts forcing defenders to guess. But if the offense is becoming more flexible, the next question gets even bigger. What happens when the other side of the roster starts losing names that have defined this team for years? The New Orleans Saints knew this moment was coming, but that does not make it easier to watch. Demario Davis is gone after 8 seasons in New Orleans, returning to the Jets on a 2-year deal after leading the Saints with 143 tackles last season. Alontae Taylor is out too, and even Cam Jordan sits in that painful gray area where the old picture of this defense no longer feels safe. That is why this offseason feels heavier than a normal roster reset. These are not just players leaving a building. These are voices, tone setters, and faces that help define the team for years. What makes this hard for fans is that the emotional reaction is completely fair. Demario Davis was still producing. Cam Jordan still means something huge to this city. Alontae Taylor was one of the younger pieces people could still picture in the future. But the Saints front office is clearly looking at the bigger clock now. It is looking at age, money, timing, and the need to stop dragging old problems forward. That is the uncomfortable truth here. New Orleans is not just trying to keep names people love. It is trying to decide which version of the team has the best chance to survive the next few years. And here is where the whole story could have fallen apart. If the Saints had only let veterans walk, this would feel like surrender. But that is not what happened. They moved on from pillars, then turned right around and brought in a player who may fit where this defense is heading even better. That is where the mood changes and where the next part of this offseason starts getting very interesting. The New Orleans Saints could have let this defense slide backward after losing names everybody knows. They did not. They went and got Kaden Elliss back, and that move tells you this reset has more thought behind it than people realize. He is not arriving as a backup story or a feel-good reunion. He is coming off a season with 107 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 1 interception. And that kind of production matters because it gives New Orleans a linebacker who can move, close, and create pressure without the defense having to show its hand too early. What makes this even stronger is the type of player Kaden Elliss has become. In Atlanta, he was used in different spots, and that helped turn him into a more complete defender than the player Saints fans first remember. Next Gen Stats highlighted his pressure impact among off-ball linebackers, and that fits a defense that needs more disruption, not just more experience. This is where the move gets interesting. New Orleans did not replace Demario Davis by chasing the same kind of player. It brought in a younger linebacker with different juice, different range, and a style that can help this unit play faster. And that is why this does not feel like a team just trying to survive change. It feels like a team trying to turn change into an advantage. Put Kaden Elliss next to young pieces already on the roster. And suddenly this defense starts looking less like a group losing its identity and more like one building a new one. But if that part of the reset is already underway, then the biggest twist of all is still waiting. Because the next move may not come from free agency at all. it may be sitting at the top of the draft board. The New Orleans Saints are reaching the part of the offseason where one pick can change how everything else gets judged. Free agency gave this roster a shape, but the draft can decide whether this team is just improving or actually building something dangerous. That is why pick number 8 feels so important. It is not only about talent, it is about direction. If New Orleans wants to speed this thing up around Tyler Show, then this next move has to match the same vision the front office has been pushing since free agency opened. What makes this more interesting is that the Saints may not be boxed into one answer. Caleb Downs is one of the biggest names in the entire class, a safety with top-tier range, instincts, and versatility. And he keeps showing up in major draft conversations because he looks like a player who can affect games in different ways. But the receiver angle is hanging there too. Chris Bell, a former teammate of Tyler Show at Louisville, is reportedly set for a Saints visit, which adds a real layer of intrigue to the wide receiver conversation, even if it does not guarantee anything yet. That is the balance New Orleans has to get right: best player or best help for the quarterback. And that is why this part of the story feels bigger than a normal draft debate. One move can either sharpen the identity New Orleans is building or leave people wondering what the real plan is. Add a player like Caleb Downs, and the defense gets a premium chess piece. Add help for Tyler Show, and the offense gets closer to feeling complete. Either way, this next decision may decide whether people finally take the Saints seriously, and that leads straight into the biggest truth of all about this team. The New Orleans Saints are a lot closer to having a real identity than people want to admit. That is the truth sitting underneath this whole offseason. This team did not chase one giant headline and hope that fixed everything. It made targeted moves, brought in Travis Etienne, David Edwards, Noah Fant, and Caden Ellis, and kept sending the same message over and over. Help the quarterback, get faster, get younger, and stop building a roster that depends on the past to survive the future. That is why this team feels more serious now than the outside noise wants to believe. What makes this so interesting is that New Orleans still has room to grow from here. The draft is still coming, more depth can still be added. The shape of the roster is not finished yet, but the direction already is. That matters. Teams get stuck when nobody can tell what they are trying to become. The Saints do not have that problem right now. They are showing a clearer plan around Tyler Show, a stronger support system on offense, and a defense that is trying to trade age for range without fully losing its bite. That does not guarantee anything, but it does change how this whole offseason should be judged. And that is the part nobody wants to say out loud. The Saints may not be the loudest team of the offseason, but they might be one of the smartest. If this plan works, people are going to look back at these moves very differently, because this will not feel like a random reset. It will feel like the moment New Orleans finally chose a lane and committed to it. And once a team does that, the conversation changes fast.